Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ma'am, you spoke earlier about, you said that the tabulation machines were set 3 times over a period, if that was one evening or over the period.
Over the whole time.
Over the whole period. You said that it was recorded. That's good. Do you have any inclination as to why that could or could be problematic?
The only thing is when you start over it, I mean, they're keeping track of how many ballots are running through each machine, and so they're getting reset to 0. They all were reset at the same time, so it all happened on the same day, on the same shift. So what was problematic was that shows me that they did not have a tested system in there, because they literally told me they didn't know what would happen if it went over 1,000 batches on any machine. So that rather than have that happen and not know what was going to happen with the ballots or the tabulation or anything, they just started over.
And they specifically used that term, if they didn't know what would happen if it went over 1,000 batches?
Batches, I think they call, that doesn't seem like the right name, but I'm losing the name right now, but 1,000 somethings going through there, so.
Thank you.
Mr. Cook?
Mr. Chairman, thank you, Mr. Chairman, to that point. So how can I feel comfortable with, in what I've just heard you say and my colleague talk about? So if I get this right, they ran 1,000 batches, vote totals come up for one party or the other. Now, I don't want to get into that, but vote totals come up for one party or the other or candidates. What I heard you say is, so you document what those votes are, or they...
We documented the number of ballots that had gone through that machine each shift. And so we had a number that was incrementally going up every shift. And then...
Okay, so then they go to 0.
Right.
So is that information is put over here for what that batch is?
I don't know what happened to the original.
So so what I'm trying to get to is, how can I feel comfortable that, are there 10 batches? Are there 9 batches? Were there 15 batches and only 9 batches counted? And I go back to what I have seen is when they were doing an audit in another state and the woman had her video recorder on and everybody knew it and said, well, how many batches are there? Well, we thought we were through, but we have 6 or 8 more boxes of batches we can't find. And that's what I'm trying to get to here in Arizona. How do we know that that wasn't the case there? Can you give me some assurance? Because I would really like to have
I can't, and I don't know who could, but I will tell you what you just said triggered another thought. The Wednesday before the Friday that we quit voting, so 10 days before they quit tabulating, they thought they were done. And then more truckloads of ballots would come in, and I'm like, how can you not know how many ballots are still out there?
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry. Would you repeat that?
Yeah.
They thought they were done.
They thought they were
and
done
then
multiple times.
There was what?
Multiple times. The people that were running the rooms thought they were done or almost done or were going to be done Wednesday morning, then Thursday morning, then Friday morning. Then it went on the whole next week. And I'm like, I asked the question, I'm like, you don't know how many ballots are still left to come in? So I don't know. I don't know who does, again, process project management.
On that,
0.
On that point, ma'am, I'm tracking with you, but what day did the truck show up?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, because
Every
what I heard
day.
the first time, what I thought I heard is a truckload of ballots showed
Yeah.
up.
Okay, just a minute. I want to make sure that we capture this properly. So there were trucks that showed up on the 3rd, and then the 4th, and then the 5th. And how long did that go on? How many days?
Well, I wasn't there the whole last week, but I know
For as
they were
long as
still-
you can recall.
Yeah,
How
they were
many days?
My last day was the 10th, and they were still coming in. And they're
Trucks.
coming from a company called Runback that does the high-speed scanning and printing of duplications and I think the military ballots. So now I'm getting out of my comfort level here talking about this. I don't know what they're doing, but those ballots were coming in from a high-speed scanning company called Runback that apparently you haven't heard of Runback?
No, I've heard of Runback,
Okay.
ma'am. But what I'm trying to figure out is whether they printed them or they scanned them, and if they scanned them off-site, to what purpose?
I can't tell you
Because wasn't that your job to scan them? Well, I beg, not your job, but
Yeah.
The-
No, all the high-speed scanning happens at Runback. So those ballots go to Runback. As far as I know, there were no observers there. I don't know. I never got called to work at Runback. That's all I can tell you.
okay, with all due respect, Mr. Cook, now we've opened up a whole new can of worms.
Yeah, and again,
So
I don't know
this-
enough about it to be the witness.
No,
of it,
that's
so, yeah.
fine. I just, your observation is useful here. So what you're telling me, I'm going to play this back to you a second. The scanning wasn't actually done on site at a Maricopa County structure. It was done someplace else.
Where they have very high-speed scanners, yeah. And-
Well,
yeah.
right now, I really don't care what the speed is.
Yeah.
I want to know, were they Dominion scanners? Or they
No,
were,
no, I don't think it has anything to do with Dominion.
So I'm trying to understand, what was the purpose of scanning them in advance of them being tabulated on the Dominion equipment?
They were duplications, the ballots that wouldn't read through the tabulation machines. They were ballots that came in from military and overseas. But there were more ballots than that. So I don't know where the rest of them were coming from, because they kept bringing trays of them in. So I don't know where they were coming from. That's a question for the county employees to explain to you where those ballots came from that whole next week. I don't know where they came from.
Mr. Cook, are you done?
He left.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Cook.
Just like that.
Mr. Giuliani.
So you were there from the 3rd until the 10th.
Yes.
Okay, so 7 days later, ballots were still coming in. And were those ballots counted?
Yeah, I watched them go
Did
through.
you observe them being
I watched
counted?
them go through the tabulation machines, and I watched people working on the adjudication of those.
And how many ballots
Oh, I don't know.
have? What was the largest number you saw in any one
Oh
day?
man.
No, just a guess. How many cartons?
Okay, there was. And I wasn't there. There was usually 2 or 3 shifts. So I want to say one day they thought 90,000 was a good number.
So
for a
one day
shift.
was.
For a shift, and if they were running multiple shifts.
And which day was that? One of the
Oh, I
middle days, one of the end days?
It was in the middle, probably.
Somewhere in the middle between the 3rd and the 10th.
Yeah,
90,000.
yeah.
And then other days it was approximately the same, or?
Some were less, some were more. So some days when they had the 3 shifts, well, they never had 3 shifts tabulating. Sorry, they just would run.
Sure,
a
no, that's
long-
okay. You're
They
doing
would
the
run
best
a
you can.
long tabulation shift.
What
so,
was the lowest number, you think?
There were some days when maybe there was only 15,000. Boy,
Fi-
please do
15
not hold me to these numbers because
Was that toward the end?
No, that would have been earlier.
To the beginning?
Yeah,
In other words, there were more ballots at the end than the beginning.
there were ballots. They were backing up, was what I would say. They're
And
not
what about-
not more coming into the building necessarily, but there's a room that we could see with rows and rows of bins of
These were
ballots.
coming in a different way?
Yes, I don't know.
They're
Some
coming
come
in the
from
back door.
Some come from the mailbox or from the postal service. They all go through a couple of, they get the signature verified, then they get the separated from the envelope, and then they end up somehow in the room that I was
So
in.
if I understand this correctly, ballots were coming in 2 different ways?
At least, yeah, from the post
Front door,
office.
back door?
Well, I think they were all the back door.
Oh, they were all the back door?
All the back door.
Okay.
None came in the front door.
But this group was 15,000 for a low, 90,000 for a high. And then those last couple of days when you were there, the 8th, the 9th, and the 10th, how many?
It was
those-
pretty average. They were still running full-time.
Like 90,000?
long shifts. Yeah, probably 70 to 80 maybe.
Wow. Anybody explain them?
Explain.
Did anybody explain what they were?
I did not ask every time. I asked a few times, so I understand some of them, but
Okay.